Hi, I'm Danielle, and this is Chatter Out Loud, a podcast where I share thoughts and TV commentary, starting with one of my favorite shows, Big Brother. In this episode, I'm chatting about Celebrity Big Brother Season 3, and I have a few live updates and spoilers. So if you're not a fan of knowing who has either won an HOH, a power of veto, or has been nominated before it airs on the CBS episode, then you should wait until you view that episode and then come back and watch my recap and my review, okay? All right, but if you are interested, keep listening. There are a few things happening on the feeds, so let's get into it. All right, first I wanted to talk about Todd and Lamar. And by the way, if you listen to my last episode, I dedicate most of the last episode to Todd and Lamar's relationship in the house, so you have to listen to that. All right. Anyway, so Todd and Lamar are talking again, and Todd is explaining the power of veto and the HOH competition, or excuse me, not the competition, but the way the power of veto and the way the HOH works. He's explaining that to Lamar again. I know a lot of people are rooting for Lamar to win the next HOH and to shake things up in the house. I'm rooting for Lamar to get the concept of HOH and power of veto before he leaves the house. So go Lamar. All right. So in that conversation, Todd is explaining to Lamar, you have to win. You have to win. You know, Todrick is the real threat. Now, Lamar already knows this. He tried to get Todd's attention prior to the vote when they voted out Shayna. And so he's already aware of this. But Todd is now like, telling Lamar, hey, you have to win. We got to get them out of there. We got to get them out of there. And I'm thinking, Todd, you had the opportunity to do that during your HOH. Carson, yes, he is a threat, but the bigger threat in terms of winning the competitions. Well, no, Carson can win competitions, but I don't know. I don't feel Carson is as big of a threat like Todd thought. I don't think Carson is as big as of a threat than Todrick and next Misha. All right. Let's see. This is something really random. And this happens a lot with Todd Bridges around the house. And that's why I adore him. He makes me laugh. All right. So they're walking down from the HOH room. They're walking down the steps. And Todd Bridges, he makes an observation. He says, this BB house is not I knew I was going to mess that up. All right. Let me start over. So Todd Bridges is coming down the steps from the HOH room, and he just made a random observation, and he said the BB house is not earthquake proof. Oh, okay. All right. All right. Next, we're going to move on to more Shayna talk from Misha and Todrick. And I'm not going into all those details, but the one thing I wanted to pull out from their conversation about Shayna again, is that now they expect an apology. Like once Shayna goes out, sees the footage and sees the episode and see how Todrick was caping for her or like trying to protect her and stuff, then they expect her to see that that Shayna owes them an apology. Let's see. What did I write? Todrick still mentions that she is out there talking about them. Yeah. I know why I wrote this note. The note I wrote down was Todrick still is mentioning that Shayna is out there talking about him. And I wrote that down specifically because I wanted to give an example or show an example as far as when Shayna left the house and said, don't worry, Todrick, I'm going to get the jury to vote against you. It's still on his mind, you guys. It's still on his mind. Because not only has he still continued talking about Shayna, him and Misha both, he still thinks she's out there talking about him. So Shayna, she didn't know if she had influence over anybody outside the house. But she knew that if she just took that last final dig at him, that it'll bother him. And she's right. She knew what she was doing. And it's still on his mind. He's still talking about it. He's still worried about it. And again, mark my words, if Todrick makes it to the final two and he loses, It doesn't matter by what vote. It could be a 9-0 vote. It doesn't matter. If he loses at all, he will blame Shayna and say that she's the reason why he lost, because she went out there to do damage and getting people to turn against him. Watch. All right. The other thing I wanted to note really quickly is around 1:40 p.m. yesterday on camera 2. And I don't even know why I'm trying to do this, but I don't know. I have a little bit of empathy for Todrick. A lot of people do not. I think we're all tired of him, right? He's messy. He's a mess. But there's certain things sometimes I see on the video where I'm like, oh, see, now if he could show more of this side, maybe people will see him a little differently or in a different light. But he makes it too hard for people to see him any other way than the way we view him now, right? And so anyway, I was going to share this. So he shared his favorite moment as a kid. And like I said in another episode, a couple episodes ago, I said he lights up when he talks about performing and how he got there and stuff like that. And I don't know. I see him differently when he lights up and talk about like performing and wanting to grow as an artist and all that stuff. And it just gets lost because he's so messy in this game. It gets lost in the personal attacks and stuff. But later in that story, and I said this is why it's so hard, because later in that story, we learned that Todrick was fired from Disney World. He was in their shows, and I guess this is what he says. He was late once. He missed rehearsal. And he was explaining how other people in the show, sometimes they fall asleep and they have some of the team members come over and say, hey, wake up, it's time for rehearsal. Well, he fell asleep once and no one woke him up. Right. And then he went on to say that people didn't like him there. And I'm like, I wonder why no one woke you up, Todrick, so you can intentionally miss the rehearsal. And anyway, the reason I'm bringing up like him missing rehearsal is because I guess it was some type of policy where if you missed rehearsal, you would get written up, and that would have made him. That would have made his third write-up or something, and so they fired him. And he was devastated, you guys. So he has a lot of trauma, right? All right. And by the way, I was not surprised at all that no one woke him up. I was not surprised at all that no one liked him, and I wasn't surprised that he was fired, Anyway, there's more venting from Todrick and Misha. Shortly after Misha told Todd Bridges that she felt like he talked a lot more than Todrick. Both Todrick and Misha feel that Todrick's talking is different than Todd Bridges' talking. And they implied, actually Misha did say this. She felt that when Todd Bridges talks, it's not an intellectual type of talk or an intellectual type of conversation, and it's not engaging. So Misha thinks Todd Bridges talks more than Todrick, and one of the differences let me back up. Misha thinks Todd Bridges talks more than Todrick, and Todrick he acquiesced. He said, I know I talk a lot, and Misha said, no, when you talk, it's different. When Todd Bridges talks, it's not like an intellectual type of talk, and it's not engaging. So she was trying to differentiate the difference between Todd Bridges and Todrick talking. I found that a bit much, but I'm reporting what I hear. All right. And then the most exciting thing I saw last night, and I'm going to watch this again, and maybe I'll put it in my recap, or I'm hoping that they show a little of this on the episode tonight. Carson called in the favor as he was talking to Todrick. He called in on the favor, the deal that they made for him and Cynthia and Todrick and Misha to keep each other safe. So he's trying to cash in on that right now. He's fighting to stay. That's what it looks like. So we'll have to see about that. And then my other note was to ask you guys, is anyone else impressed, like with Carson and Cynthia, how they're trying to step up their game now, right? The way they approach Todrick and wanting to cash in on this deal and say, hey, we made a deal that we keep each other safe to that final four. So they're pulling that card now. So we'll see how it works out. But are you impressed that now they're looking like they kind of know how the game goes? Maybe, right? I wish they could have checked into the game like this a lot sooner. And if they did that, maybe we would still have Shayna in the house and she would be the target for the dominant duo and vice versa, right? But we're here now. Yeah, and so that's all I have for you guys. And just as a reminder, this week we have Todd Bridges. He is the HOH. He nominated Carson and he nominated Lamar. The power of veto was played. It was won by Misha, and she opted not to use the power of veto. So the nominations remain as Carson and Lamar. And so one of those two guys will be going home tonight. Carson and Cynthia are already stepping up their game a little bit to try to keep Carson in the house. So we have to see how this works. And then the reason they're approaching Todrick, and you guys are fans, so you should know. But I just thought I'd mention the reason why Carson is reaching out to Todrick is because the votes stand like this. There's Todrick, he'll have a vote. Misha will have a vote. And then Cynthia will have a vote. So he's reaching out and saying, hey, I want to cash in on this deal now, trying to persuade Todrick and Misha to vote Lamar out, right? Because Todrick and Misha, they control who goes home this week. They're the majority in the votes. There's 3 votes. They are the majority. So they'll control who leaves the house tonight. So we'll have to see how all of that plays out, right? All right, now that's all I have. So be sure to come back, give me a listen, like, follow, share, subscribe. You can leave me a comment, leave me a message. If you're listening to the podcast, there's a link to leave a message right on that landing page. So check that out. You can find me by looking for Chatter Out Loud. I have this podcast. I tweet. I'm on YouTube. So look for Chatter Out Loud and you'll find me. All right. So my name is Danielle and you're listening to my podcast, Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me. And as always, I appreciate your support. And that's all I have. Thanks again for listening and I'll talk to you next time.